Okay, so generative AI, everyone's talking about it. But how do you actually scale it? You're a multinational corporation, you've got stakeholders to manage, risks to think about. Not to mention, you need to see some return on this investment, right?
Yeah, you're hearing that right from a lot of executives these days. It's not enough to just test the waters anymore. You've got to go all in.
We're not talking about replacing everyone with robots, are we?
Not quite, no. It's about being strategic. Where can generative AI make the biggest difference? Streamlining supply chains, maybe? Or getting ahead of those customer needs? Even supercharging your R&D to stay competitive?
So like what Bloomberg's doing, using AI to make sense of earnings calls.
Exactly. That's what I mean by focusing on value, not just cost cutting. It's about working smarter, faster, ultimately delivering more to your customers.
And our research shows it's paying off too. Across the board, manufacturing, finance, even government serious ROI from generative AI. But how do you make it work? What separates those winning companies from the ones stuck in pilot project limbo?
One word: adoption. Having the technology isn't enough. Your team needs to use it, make it part of how they work. They have to see it as a tool that helps them, not a threat.
That's usually easier said than done, though.
Right.
People are used to doing things a certain way. There's always pushback to new tech.
And that's where leadership comes in. The company's killing it with generative AI. Their leaders are all in too. They're training their people, building a culture that embraces learning. Most importantly, showing how this tech makes everyone's jobs better.
Like EY teaming up with ServiceNow. They're not just using GenAI themselves, they're guiding their clients through it. It's that kind of sharing that seems key.
You got it. The company's trying to keep Gen AI a secret. They're shooting themselves in the foot. This is a team effort.
So we've got leadership, we've got culture, but what about the actual nuts and bolts? How do you implement and scale this within these huge global companies?
Well, that's where it gets tricky, especially with these multinational companies, right? You've got different regions, regulations, even different levels of technology everywhere you look. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here.
It's like trying to conduct an orchestra where every musician has a different instrument and they're all reading from a different score.
Yeah.
How do you get everyone on the same page?
It's all about governance. You need a strong conductor. You've got to have those ethical guidelines, data security, a system to make sure things aren't getting biased along the way. These aren't just suggestions, they're must-haves if you want people to trust your use of AI.
And we've all seen what happens when things go wrong, right? Chatbots going off the rails, biased algorithms. That's not just bad PR, it can sink a company these days.
Exactly. That's why you need that central AI team, that governance board, not to stifle things, but to keep them moving in the right direction, make sure everyone's playing by the rules, knows the risks, and how to avoid them.
Okay, so we got the governance part down. But what about the actual infrastructure? What good's a strategy if your data's a mess? Siloed, full of errors, you name it.
You're trying to build a race car, but the frame's held together with duct tape. You might get a few feet, but you're not winning any races that way.
So what's the answer then? How do you deal with these massive data sets that AI needs?
Data strategy, that's where you start. Consolidate, clean it up, make sure it's standardized, get your data house in order. Cloud computing can be a big help here.
Everyone's talking about the cloud, but is it really all it's cracked up to be for AI?
Think of it this way.
Yeah.
GenAI, it's a high-performance engine, right? But it needs a good car around it. The cloud's that car. The computing power, the infrastructure, and you don't have to build it all yourself, which is the best part.
You're renting the car instead of building it from scratch.
Exactly. And you get more than just the car, you get a whole pit crew too. The tools, platforms, even pre-trained AI models, it's all there ready to go.
Makes sense. But realistically, not every company has the people to manage all that. We're talking serious data science here, cloud architecture. It's a lot.
That's where you bring in the experts. Your pit crew, remember? You might have some great mechanics in-house, but you're gonna need specialists too. Data engineers, people who can build those AI models, even ethics consultants.
So know what you're good at, and don't be afraid to get help where you need it.
Exactly. Companies that try to do it all themselves, they fall behind. The real winners, they're building a network. Partners, collaborators, even competitors sometimes, sharing what they know.
So less cutthroat, more collaboration. That's interesting.
Right. And it's because Gen AI is just so complex. It's changing all the time. No one can keep up on their own. We learn faster by working together. The successes, the mistakes, it all helps.
Governance, infrastructure, partnerships, it's all important. But at the end of the day, none of it works if you don't have the people on board.
You've got to bring your people along, right? Change is tough. And GenAI, that's a whole other level for a lot of folks.
It's a whole different way of working, different skills even.
That's it. And you need the right leadership to guide people through that. Less about telling people what to do, more about listening, understanding, giving your team the tools to succeed.
How do you get people excited about that, though, instead of scared?
You explain it to them, plain and simple. Break down what it is, how it works, address their concerns. Most importantly, show them how it actually makes their jobs easier.
Lots of training, I imagine.
Definitely. But it's not just about the tech stuff. Think critical thinking, problem solving, those human skills that AI can't replicate.
Because even the smartest AI still needs a human touch, right? To make sense of it all, keep it on track, make sure it's being used the right way.
Exactly. And that takes a certain kind of culture, one where people are always learning, trying new things, where it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. Everyone needs to feel comfortable asking questions, speaking up.
So the culture has to be as flexible as the technology itself.
Yeah.
Everyone ready to adapt, experiment.
That's what it comes down to. And that has to come from the top. Companies need to realize the future of work is changing right now. And the ones who embrace that, they're the ones who will thrive.
So any parting advice for our listeners? The executives out there, they're ready to be those Gen AI leaders. What do they need to know?
Jump in, dive right in. This technology is not slowing down. You wait too long, you get left behind. Start small, experiment, make those mistakes, and learn from them. And never stop asking yourself, how can I use this to make things better? For my company, for my team, for everyone.
Keep that curiosity going, that drive to explore, to push the limits. Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, keep innovating.